following video is not made for kids. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello to my subscribers, this is the Tiafangi coming to you with what will hopefully be a successful review, and today we're going to be taking a look at Transformers Legacy Wave 3 Deluxe Class Decepticon Crankcase. Now, Crankcase is somewhat unique compared to his mold mates, Skull Grin, Point Blank, and Dead End, in the fact that Crankcase is the only deluxe figure from Wave 3 of the Legacy line who is not a entirely brand new mold. He is an extensive retool of the Legacy Wave 1 Deluxe class figure of Autobots Skids. He's a third version of the mold. Skids was the first one. The second one was the Legacy Velocitron Speed of 500 Burnout figure. It's been confirmed that the fourth version of the Legacy Skids mold is going to be Crosscut, who is based on the Silver Diaclone version of Skids. And so, with Crosscut confirmed, if Hasbro and Takara were to do all of the Diaclone repaints of Skids, it's with Crankcase being mold mates with him now. The Skids mold will end up being used 6 times. After they release Crosscut, there's 2 more versions of Skids from the Diaclone robot line that they could release this mold. There's the red Diaclone version of Skids, which is named Autobot Reboost, and then there's the orange version of Diaclone Skids, who was given the name Screech in the Transformers comic books. Whether or not after we get Crosscut, who's being released in the Legacy Evolution line next year in 2023, he is uncertain at this point, but here's hoping that we do get Reboost and Screech someday. So, bringing focus here on Crankcase. Crankcase is an extensive retool of Skids, as I mentioned a moment ago. Here's a image of his vehicle mode here. Here he's packaged in robot mode. On the side of the box, you've got some artwork of Crankcase. You got a close-up of his face sculpt right there. You got a zoomed-out version of that image of his head where he's armed up and ready to fight against the Autobots. I did have the Dark of the Moon Deluxe class Crankcase figure that was released back in 2011, but I didn't really like the way that figure looked in robot mode, and I didn't like the transformation, so I sold it off a few years ago. So this right here, the Legacy figure, this has once again become the only action figure of Crankcase that I have in my Transformers collection. And this is only the second figure based off of Generation 1 Crankcase that's been released by Hasbro and Takara. The first was, of course, the original G1 version, and Crankcase was one of several Transformers that were known as the Triggercons. The Autobot counterparts to them were known as the Triggerbots, and the Triggercons and Triggerbots had a gimmick where they had spring-loaded pop-out cannons that would come out of the roof of their vehicle modes. That Triggercon gimmick has, of course, been removed with this version of Crankcase, despite the retooling parts. Hasbro and Takara are relying less and less on gimmicks to be installed inside the Transformers figures that are targeted at the older adult collectors, and the gimmick Transformers are being marketed towards younger Transformers fans. But I'm certain that someone out there will try and make a third-party upgrade kit that gives Legacy Crankcase here the purple roof cannons that his Generation 1 action figure came with. This side of the box, of course, you got the Decepticon side of the Legacy Year 1 image. It's been revealed now. As of this video's recording, it's December of 2022. There's only a couple of weeks left before the year 2022 comes to an end, and Year 2 of the Legacy line will be called Legacy Evolution. So there's the image of the Year 1 Legacy logo here. Bottom of the box, nothing much. Coming on here to the back of the box, you've got the product photos of Crankcase. You have him in his robot mode and in his vehicle mode. Unlike Skids and Burnout, who are supposed to be a hatchback sports cars, Crankcase is supposed to be a type of Jeep, and that's why the retool parts of him include the more prominent front grille section with the much larger headlights, and then of course he's got containers on the side of him. I forgot what it's called, and then he's got more prominent rear bumper. We'll show that off when we get him out of the box and get him transformed. But yeah, there's his vehicle mode, and he transforms back and forth between robot mode and vehicle mode in 14 steps. So yes, even though he's a retool of Skids, Crankcase is technically supposed to transform into a quote-unquote entirely different vehicle, but even then, And some of the retool parts do carry over into his robot mode. You can even see it here while he's still inside his box. He has an entirely brand new sculpted robot mode chest. I believe the shoulder joints might be a new molding as well. But yeah, overall, I do enjoy how Crankcase came out. Hopefully someday we'll get the other modern-day figures of the other Triggercon ons. But until then, let's get Crankcase out of his box and take a close look at him in robot mode. All right, and here he is out of the box, and Crankcase is much more impressive than I originally thought he would be. Now that I have him in hand, unfortunately, my copy of Crankcase does have one slight defect in which his head here at the neck joint, it doesn't want to sit parallel with his torso, so he does want to lean over to one side and look like he's slouching, so that is a tad unfortunate to see. Maybe see if spinning the head around might fix it. No, it's not, and I can even feel the ball joint hitting something in there. I don't know if it's a piece of plastic or a piece of paint. Okay, I spun it around both directions and I kind of fixed the head a little bit, but it still feels like it wants to go off to one side. One thing I find kind of funny is that Hasbro and Takara wanted to make the front grill section for Crankcase's vehicle mode his main large laser gun, and while it kind of, with a bit of stretch of an imagination, can work as a laser gun, because it's hollowed out on the other side, it kind of ruins the illusion of it being a laser gun. Apart from that, he does come with the same single blaster laser gun, that laser pistol that both Skids and Burnout can aim with, and similar to Skids and Burnout's laser guns. Let me see, I can't quite remember if they are or not. But I think they're made out of clear plastic, just painted over in silver. So it's not too far different. Crankcase's smaller laser gun being same as Skids and Burnout's is. But I just do enjoy all the new sculpted detailing that he has, his new head sculpt. He does have the purple cannons that his Generation 1 Triggercon action figure came with, but they are much significantly smaller than his the laser guns that would flip, that would spring load and pop out of Generation 1 Crankcases. My brain is working faster than my tongue is, and I lose the words I was going to say exactly. Well, one thing Hasbro and Takara told me did carry over, and it's something that I actually can't show off until we get Crankcase transferred into vehicle mode, but I can kind of sort of touch on it when we draw here on his backpack. When he's transformed into his vehicle mode, Crankcase has these purple stripes running down the length of his the roof of his vehicle mode, and that's a reference to the fact that these back cannons, these shoulder cannons that the Generation 1 Crankcase figure had, they were huge cannons that would pop up out of the vehicle mode, and that's what these purple stripes on the roof of Crankcase's vehicle mode represent. They represent the original large giant cannons that would flip out of Generation 1 Crankcase. But yeah, I do enjoy how he came out. For a size comparison, here he is next to Legacy Skids, and just to have Skids and parts that are new on Crankcase. He does have the outside of the lower leg, which becomes the back section of the vehicle mode. That is new molding as well. Now the entire chest section of the robot mode is new molding. The shoulders and the upper arms above the bicep swivel, that's entirely new molding. He has a new head sculpt. Oh, the backpack is, of course, entirely brand new as well. And the backpack is, of course, brand new as well. Sorry if I just mentioned that. I lost my train of thought there for a moment. And then, of course, the parts that are new, the lower section of the arms, from the bicep swivel joint all the way down to the fists, that's the same molding. And then the pelvis is the exact same molding on both on Crankcase as it is on Skids. The upper half of the legs is the same sculpt as well. And of course, Crankcase does have the same sculpted feet with the tires. tires, which are molded the same as well. Oddly enough, Crankcase, even though technically Hasbro and Takara Tomy didn't have to, they gave him the exact same wheels on his shoulders that are found on Skids and also Burnout. So, unfortunately, the front half of the wheels, it's only the outer half of the tire that actually spins. The inner half is stationary and doesn't spin. And I've seen more than one collector voice their opinion that they would have wished that they would have at least done a fully spinning tires on Crankcase. One of the reasons why I can see they didn't do it is because of how the back of the shoulder has a transformation joint when you get Crankcase into his vehicle mode. So that's just a minor nitpick, but overall I do enjoy how Crankcase came out. Alright, and before we get Crankcase transformed into his alt mode and we wrap up the review, here's a group shot of him with his mold mates. Again, Crankcase is the third version of the Legacy Skids mold, who was the original. The second version was the Velocitron on 500 Deluxe Class Burnout, who is a female character, and I just enjoy how, even though Crankcase has almost the same shade of black plastic that was used on Burnout, my camera is making it look like they're virtually identical, but Burnout is actually a matte black plastic, while Crankcase is made out of a solid crystal clear jet black plastic, so the similarities are close enough that you can tell that it's the same mold, but they're different enough that you can recognize right off the bat that these are entirely different Transformers characters and not just different body types of the exact same character. And there's a few more subtle differences in vehicle mode that we'll cover when we get them Crankcase transformed in just a bit. But yeah, I do enjoy how Crankcase turned out. And again, it's been confirmed that we're getting crosscut in this mold, and whether or not we're also going to get Screech and Reboost is uncertain at this point, but if we do get this mold, a 5th and 6th version of this mold, I know I will buy them up just to have all of the Diaclone versions of Skids that officially exist. And yes, as far as which of these guys is my favorite versions, because I have nostalgia for Skids, he's my most favorite, and again, these are the only figures of Burnout and Crankcase that I have in my collection, so they're tied for second place of being my second favorite version of the mold. Whether or not crosscut is going to change that is uncertain, but it's very late at night, and that's why my words keep breaking up. My mind is working faster than my tongue is, so I've pretty much said all I have to say, and except for the fact that I almost forgot to cover articulation. So if you have Skids and Burnout, the articulation on Crankcase is, despite the retool parts, it's no different. He has a ball joint in the head, so the head can look up and down a bit. It can spin in left and right 360 degrees. Technically, the arm at the shoulder can go up this much, but that's actually more of a transformation joint. Unlike Skids and Burnout, who can actually move the arm outward at the shoulder itself, Crankcase is unable to do that. You do have a swivel joint in the bicep, hinged elbow, swivel joints in the wrists. Yes, and if you wanted to, the arm could technically rotate outward at the shoulder, but it can't spin. Crankcase just made a liar out of me. He can spin around, but you have to have the arm rotated outward. So the arm has the potential to spin around 360 degrees clockwise and counterclockwise, but if you have the shoulder joint pointed out, it'll work much better versus having it lay down right there. So the joints are really tight, fresh out of the box, so that's why I thought it didn't have it there for a moment. Swivel joint in the waist. The legs can only go outward this far. Crankcase does have the same sculpted hips that are on Skids and Burnout. So if you look closely, there's an elevated lip right there at the very top of the upper leg, so it prevents the figure from doing a full splits. You have a swivel joints in the thighs, hinge joints in the knees, and of course you do have ankle rockers. So if you want to get Crankcase into a sprawl-legged pose, you can. So yes, despite the new sculpted parts, it's almost the exact same articulation that's found on Burnout and Skids. So that's really fun to see despite the retool parts, that there's just as much similarities as there are differences to distinguish Crankcase from Skids and also Burnout. So without further delay, let's finally get him transformed into his alt mode and wrap up the review. I almost forgot, again, as I said a moment ago, it's late at night when I'm recording this review, so I'm ready to go to sleep. But one thing you can do to further distinguish Skids from, Crankcase, distinguish him from Skids and Burnout, is you can leave the tires flipped out if you want and give him a different foot configuration. And of course, one thing that I will show off is that if you don't want the grill laser gun, and right here, then to transform this laser gun into Crankcase's grill, you flip up this back piece right there, and it forms the other side of the grill. And it just plugs right here onto the front of Crankcase's chest. So if you don't want to have Crankcase to have his large, enormous laser gun here, then that's what he looks like with the grill section not removed. So it does take away his distinction from Skids and also Burnout. And having the grill removed and having the actual robot chest like this, it is much more accurate to the sculpting detailing from the original Generation 1 Crankcase figure. But if you're not a fan of the grill laser gun, you can leave it attached if you desire. Alright, here is Crankcase transformed into his vehicle mode, and the only real place to put his laser gun is right up there on the roof. I kind of almost wish they would have done 2 5mm ports, or it's here on the outside edges that line up with the purple racing stripes, because again, those 2 tiny shoulder cannons that Crankcase has in his robot mode on the Generation 1 action figure, these purple stripes here on the roof represent the huge, enormous laser cannons that would flip out of the Generation 1 Crankcase figure. There's 2 molded squares right here, which are spaces for a joint, so I can see someone making an upgrade kit that uses these sculpted in squares on the roof of Crankcase to make some more G1 style cannons. The closest you can get to Crankcase activating his shoulder cannons in his alt mode here is the laser cannons are sticking there out of the windshield, so you can just use your imagination of them flipping out like that. But all things considered, and considering the fact that Hasbro and Takara decided to repurpose the Skids mold for Crankcase, I think he turned out to be a pretty fantastic looking Transformers character. The one gripe I have with Crankcase is that his, just like Skids and Burnout, his head forms the front middle section of the vehicle mode, and it has his solitary Decepticon logo here. It's the back of his robot mode head, and again, because of that ball joint there, Crankcase's head wants to sag down, and so I kind of wish they would have done it so that the head is in a more secure space, so that it doesn't look like someone tried to kick in the Decepticon logo on the hood, like that. But other than that minor gripe, Skids, his wheels do spin really well, although you have a hairline of clearance here on him, so he's only going to roll around on a very flat surface. I will admit, I did have a little slightly more trouble getting these side panels on Crankcase to lock in place properly than I did with Skids and Burnout. So, even with the weapons attached to them, you can still see the differences and similarities between both figures. Pretty much all the new sculpted parts on Crankcase, with the exception of the robot mode chest, they benefit the alt mode slightly more. He does have some paint detailing right there and there here, so he has 3 sets of windows, unlike Skids, who just has 2 sets of windows in his vehicle mode. So again, Crankcase is supposed to be a type of military combat Jeep. That's what his G1 figure was based on, while Skids is a hatchback sports car. So a Jeep versus car. R is the thing when comparing Crankcase's vehicle mode with Skids. The tires, admittedly, they are the exact same one, but if you look closely, the mushroom peg, or the peg that they fit inside on Crankcase, they're facing vertically, while on Skids and Burnout, they're facing horizontally, so they're at least facing a different direction, so that's nice to see. The back wheels are identical. Again, the backpack is sculpted differently, different rear view mirrors, different hood sections, different roof, different doors, and unlike Skids and Burnout, whose doors, or in vehicle mode, you can kind of open them up and make them look like actual car doors, but the way Crankcases transform, they flip out sideways like that, and as far as I'm aware of, there's no actual maker model of cars whose doors swing out like that. Granted, there are gull wing doors, but they rotate at the top of the roof, not the underneath the windows. The 5mm pegs, ports that allow weapons to peg in place, they've been replaced with these containers right here on the side of Crankcase. The bottom of the vehicle mode is surprisingly the part that's the most similar between the two. Pretty much the bottom of the vehicle mode, with the exception of the parts that form the robot mode shoulders. That's the only area that's different. Everything else is the same, apart from the paint job. And then coming around here to the back of the vehicle mode, unfortunately, Crankcase, the two back sections of him, they don't want to tab in place properly like they do here on Skid, so that's one of the reasons why I think that even though Crankcase is only the third version of the mold, unless I'm mistransforming him, I think Crankcase is already showing signs of mold degradation, so hopefully Hasbro and Takatomi will fix that when future versions of this mold, such as Crosscut, get released, and it'll be resolved. But here on the back, Crankcase, he does have a newly sculpted spare tire, and I love how it's the same size and shape as the actual tires of the vehicle. Eagle there, and yeah, Skids, it doesn't have anything like that. And there's two 5mm ports on the back of Crankcase, so if you wanted to plug 5mm weapons there on the back of him, you could. Although the 5mm port on here, on this side of Crankcase, it does not extend as far outward as the 5mm port on the spare tire. So if you wanted to, for instance, plug in blast effects that were the same size and shape, you'll have one that's sticking out a couple of centimeters farther than the other one. But overall, I'm really impressed with how Crankcase turned out. And for a size comparison, here he is with Burnout. Paint-wise, Crankcase is much more similar to Burnout than he is to Skids. Again, Burnout has her tail lights are painted on the back, so that's nice. And Crankcase, I'm just noticing, he's the first version of the mold that has actual painted hubcaps. They're unpainted on both Skids and Burnout, so that's a nice thing to see there. And just for one last group shot, I'll bring them all in together. So here's Crankcase surrounded by both Skids and Burnout. I just love how there's enough sculpted parts to distinguish him in both vehicle mode just like in robot mode. So for my final thoughts, do I recommend you get Legacy Crankcase and add him to your Transformers collection? I absolutely do. You cannot go wrong having Crankcase in your Transformers collection. I love all the new sculpted parts that make the vehicle mode on Skids, which was a hatchback sports car. It's now a Jeep here for Crankcase. Hopefully we'll get the other Triggercons in the near future, which I'd love to see Crankcase united with his Triggercon partners. But yes, I cannot get over, even though I said at the beginning of the review that he's the only Legacy Wave 3 Deluxe class figure that is not a new mold, and he's an extensive retool of a previously released Transformers figure. I am thrilled to have an action figure of Crankcase in my Transformers collection again, especially one based off of Generation 1 Crankcase. Thank you guys all so much. This has been the TFangy, and next time, you guys, stay safe, stay healthy. There's more reviews come. coming. Please wish me luck on getting those completed, and until next time, you guys, transform and roll out. Goodbye, everyone.